Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transmissible, a public health podcast. I am your host, Jessica Stahl, and I have spent most of my career as a contractor with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. First, working with dangerous and rare pathogens in the laboratory, then traveling internationally with CDC to train scientists in rare bacterial identification. I then worked on the emergency COVID-19 response in the laboratory and testing task force, working on health communications and with the media. I also have my MPH from UAB with a concentration in epidemiology, and this podcast is my passion project. I love it so much. This is where we cover every public health topic under the sun, or we plan to, from historic outbreaks, dangerous diseases, leaning more into the infectious disease side, but also touching on non-ID topics such as public health challenges during wartime, during natural disasters, preeclampsia, extreme morning sickness. We covered the history and science of that, phototherapy for newborns. That was more of a global health topic, focusing heavily on Nigeria. We also cover major turning points in scientific history. I love the historic side of public health and science. We've covered, topics around germ theory, and, 2 times ago we did diphtheria and the Great Serum Race, 1925. It's Alaska. There's a blizzard. They're trying to get the serum to Nome to save these children. Very, very fun. We cover historic topics, we cover modern day topics. I did an episode on vaccines and autism, or what you need to know about measles. And my main goal for this podcast is to always be evidence-based and give you the data and the facts so you can think about science on your own and make health decisions that are right for your family, yourself, and your communities. It's just been really fun. If you listen to Transmissible, you're joining a community of listeners from from 48 different countries. Everyone is really nice. I had talked about that last episode. This is a really nice community, which is not always the case on the internet, and it's just been so much fun. This is my very first episode using the video component. I knew I was kind of behind by not using video with my podcast, and every time I would record, I'd think, I have a camera, I might as well just flip it on. So lo and behold, today we are trying the video component. I haven't used it with this software. Back in the day, I streamed on Twitch. I streamed video games on Twitch, and so I'm pretty familiar with video recordings, but I've never used this podcasting software in the video capacity. So we will see how this goes, but I think it'll be just a fun addition to the podcast. And yeah, I want to get into our new schedule for 2026, but let me do a quick check just to make sure this audio and video is linking before I just sit down and record like an hour. 1 second. Okay, I would say it is working. So let's talk about our 2026 schedule moving forward, and then we will jump into this very timely alpha-gal syndrome. This is all over the news right now. It's the meat allergy from a tick bite, and it's just, I want to talk about it. I want to give you the facts. I want to tell you how to protect yourself against it, and it's just going to be a very timely, useful episode. But first, I want to talk about the schedule going into 2026. So here are my thoughts, and would love feedback. Let me know. Send me an email. You can always email me, transmissiblepodcast@gmail.com. But this is what I'm thinking, and I think we're going to stick to it. Now, I think we are going to stick to it, but the first Monday of the month, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to stop saying the thinking. This is the schedule. We will be doing a modern, timely episode. Today is a good example. This is coming out December 1st at 6 a.m. Eastern and maybe 4 a.m. Eastern. I want it to be ready for the morning commute, but basically it's going to be a modern topic episode. This would be like today, alpha-gal syndrome, but it could also be for my public health professionals talking about the public health job, the workforce, how to find a job, the job market, and just how challenging that is right now. That was my last episode. If you are one of my public health listeners, please, and looking for a job, please go listen to the episode I uploaded right before this. I think it will be really helpful. But the first Monday of the month will be something like that. So it will be a modern science topic, disease, If there's a typhoon somewhere in the world, we might cover that. It's going to be a timely, more catered to what is going on in the news and what you might need to know to protect yourself this weekend type thing. Now, the third Monday of the month is going to be my historic episodes. The history part has a special place in my heart. I love that aspect of this podcast. And so it will be a historic, more leaning, historic-based public health topic. I'm talking bubonic plague. 2 episodes ago, the diphtheria and the Great Serum Race, that would count as that. So that one will hedge a little bit more historic, where we cover the science, epidemiology, the clinical presentation and the history of that disease. Like almost every topic I've done, I cover the history of the disease. And I guess even for like my modern day ones, I might touch on it, but my third Monday of the month will be heavy on the history. So, but everything still public health science as the core of it. I'm also bebopping around with the thought of a slight rebrand. I want a true logo. And I'm thinking, and I also would love feedback on this, of switching to, instead of Transmissible, a public health podcast, maybe Transmissible, a public health science podcast. I think that might describe the podcast a little bit better, since I do have a microbiologist background. We get into the science a little bit deeper than some platforms, so I think I might tweak that. Those are just kind of housekeeping things. Like I like to say, is this podcast is 90% public health with about 10%, what is it like to start a podcast? I started this in my last semester of graduate school. I was fairly postpartum. And so part of this podcast is like sharing what it's like to have a podcast. And so that's been a fun aspect of this too. But I think those are our housekeeping things. I hope you're enjoying the video. I think what my plan for this is, so Spotify, and that's my hosting platform, you can upload a video now. And so this will go onto Spotify. So if you're on Spotify, you can see the video. And I think I'm going to start a YouTube to dump the videos there as well. So I believe if you're on Apple Podcasts, you could not see the video yet. I'm sure they're going to change that. There might be a way to do it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you're like, I can see the video. That means I figured out how to get it on there. But for right now, it's Spotify and YouTube. And I know when it comes to the podcast side, more people use Apple Podcasts. So I will try to get a video on there. We'll see how that goes. But without further ado, let's talk about this crazy situation that is all over the news. The media is loving this topic, and I am seeing reports that are incorrect, reports that are not scientifically based, some really crazy tweets about it. I'm always on Twitter looking at what people are saying, and it's just, there's a lot of misinformation around this topic. So let's talk about the facts and what we know about alpha-gal syndrome. Alpha-gal, it's like GAL. But let's dive into it. My notes are right here, hopefully with the audio, or with the video aspect. I don't think that blocks it. I think we're good. Okay. So this is the tick bite meat allergy that is taking the US by storm. And we're also going to talk about how to protect yourself. That is a very important aspect of this. So alpha-gal syndrome, AGS, is a complex allergic reaction or allergic disease characterized by the development of specific IgE antibodies against the carbohydrate galactose alpha 1,3 galactose, aka alpha-gal. It's an oligosaccharide that is present in cells and tissues of non-primate mammals. And individuals with IgE antibodies to alpha-gal suffer from this delayed form of anaphylaxis following red meat consumption. And so that is where these news stories are going right now, is like I read about one super, super sad JetBlue pilot. He eats some meat at a barbecue and unfortunately passes away. I believe it was like 6 hours after. It was this delayed reaction that is very characteristic of alpha-gal syndrome. So it's this serious, potentially, like we just talked about, life-threatening allergy and tick-borne disease. Now, the star of the show of this episode is going to be the tick. It is tick-borne. It is hitting people specifically, or not specifically, but in general from the east. Oh my gosh, I'm messing up the video when I'm using my hands. I'm like a hands talker, and I'm used to this not recording the video. It's happening heavily in the east, the south, and the Midwest, everywhere where the Lone Star tick is found. It is also popping up a little bit with the blacklegged or western blacklegged tick. So when the tick bites, it transfers this alpha-gal molecule from its saliva into the person's blood. The body's natural defense, or the immune system, can identify alpha-gal as a threat, and it triggers a delayed allergic reaction. Now, what's interesting is that the tick's saliva has been shown to contain proteins carrying alpha-gal, but also the saliva has these bioactive molecules, such as prostaglandin E2, which is capable of stimulating an increased expression of anti-inflammatory cytokines while promoting a decrease in the production of pro-inflammatory mediators. So together, these components might promote the Th2 related immunity and trigger a class switch to IgE antibodies directed against the oligosaccharide of alpha-gal. So basically, the tick bite has the alpha-gal molecule, but it also, the saliva of it basically helps your body attack it, and it is why you can have such a strong reaction to it. It is helping the disease flourish, I guess you could say. So symptoms occur after people eat red meat or are exposed to other products that have this alpha-gal. So that's red meat, but it's also gelatin. Gelatin is in a lot of things, certain pharmaceuticals. In fact, back in the day, they figured out that there might be an issue because there were cancer trials going on, and they were giving these patients, the people who were part of this trial, this certain medication, and they started having these severe allergic reactions, and they triggered it to the alpha-gal molecule. It came from mice that was in this experimental drug. So that is how they figured it out. But basically, it is all over the news. It's the red meat allergy. It's this delayed response. There's another very sad news article that is just going crazy viral right now about a 16-year-old who passed away after eating, I believe it was some type of bratwurst or a hot dog. But it's like the pilot. It's this delayed allergic reaction to meat from this tick bite. So let's get into the epi of it, the numbers, the data of it. So more than 110,000 suspected cases of alpha-gal syndrome were identified between 2010 and 2022. However, cases of AGS are not nationally notifiable to CDC. So there is a kind of a gray area with the reporting of AGS. The actual number of AGS cases in the United States is not known, but they think that as many as 450,000 people in the U.S. might be affected. This is almost 500,000 people in the U.S. may be infected or may have alpha-gal syndrome. More data and research are needed to understand how many people are affected by this condition. So put this in the bucket of things we need CDC for. This is a great example. It is thought that the recent media attention is bringing it to the forefront of local doctors' attention, and some people are, requesting testing. And as we see, is when there is more awareness around an issue or a disease or a condition, a lot of times the reported numbers go up because more local doctors are testing for it. More people are advocating for themselves to get tested. People are seeking out something instead of just saying, oh, this weird thing is now happening to me. You can put a name to a condition. So alpha-gal syndrome allergy symptoms are similar to other food allergy symptoms, but with a more GI-centered distress. It's more of a gastrointestinal issue. Signs of AGS allergic reactions may include hives or itchy rash, GI symptoms, nausea, vomiting, heartburn or indigestion, diarrhea, severe abdominal pain, cough, shortness of breath or trouble breathing, swelling of the lips, throat, tongue, or eyelids, dizziness or fainting, low blood pressure, and the allergy can cause anaphylaxis, which is this potentially life-threatening allergic reaction involving more than one organ system at a time, but that is rare, and it is not the prominent symptom that people are getting. Most healthcare providers recommend that patients with AGS simply eating red meat such as beef, pork, lamb, venison, or rabbit, dairy products if a person is not able to tolerate dairy, and certain medicines and non-food products. Like I said, it's in gelatin. And it's interesting, I was reading this study and some people just had to totally eliminate dairy, red meat, all the above. Some people eventually were able to get back to eating normally. Some people didn't eat dairy, but they could eat meat. It really varies by individual. Now, the best way, this is one of the main things about this episode, how do you protect yourself from alpha-gal syndrome? And the without a doubt, very best way to protect yourself and your family from developing AGS is to prevent the tick bite from even happening. So we're going to talk all about how to prevent tick bites. This is very important, especially when, talking about tick-borne diseases. Okay, so let's jump into it. How do you protect yourself from tick bites? And this is straight off the US CDC's website. So before you even go outdoors, these are some things I want you to think about. Know where to expect ticks. Ticks live in grassy, brushy, or wooded areas, even on animals. Spending time outside walking your dog, camping, gardening, or hunting can bring you in close contact with ticks. Many people get ticks in their own yard or neighborhood. Little story time, I was in Tennessee. I was in high school. I walked through this there was like an old barn. It was so pretty. This beautiful field. I thought nothing of it. I was just walking out there. I was up there with a friend, and all of a sudden, I don't remember where I saw the very first one, but it occurred to me that I might have a tick on me. And so my mom was there. She lifts up the back of my shirt, and it is like covered in ticks, and it freaked me out. I was like covered. I had obviously gone through either like a nested area or there was just like a really high concentration. I was not in that field for very long, but I was absolutely covered in ticks. We got them off of me before I, got any bites or they burrowed or anything, but it was crazy and it happened very quickly. So know where to expect ticks. 2, you can treat clothing and gear with products containing 0.5% Permethrin. Permethrin can be used to treat boots, clothing, camping gear, and remain protective through several washings. Alternatively, you can buy Permethrin treated clothing and gear. And then just as the website says, avoid contacts with ticks. Avoid wooded and brushy areas with high grass and leaf litter. Walk in the center of trails. If the option is to go down a dirt trail or walk in the brush next to it when you're in an area that has a lot of ticks, maybe choose the trail instead of the brush. Use EPA registered insect repellents containing DEET and I'll put a link to the website. There's like all these other things. Oil of lemon, eucalyptus, PMD. EPA has a helpful search tool that can help you find the products that best suit your needs. Always follow product instruction. Do not use product containing OLE or PMD on children under 3 years old. When used as directed, EPA registered insect repellents are proven safe and effective, even for pregnant and breastfeeding women. But make sure you're following the product's instructions because they're all a little bit different. After you come indoors, so okay, you did your preparations, You're prepared, you go out there and you come back in. What are you going to do when you come back indoors? And remember, this is to avoid getting a tick-borne illness. So these are important. So check your clothing for ticks. This is very important. When I was out, my family is a very outdoorsy family, especially when I was little. When I would come back in, we were always checking for ticks. We were checking, at like where your sock meets your pant leg. So check your clothing. Ticks may be carried into the house on clothing. Any ticks that are found should be removed. Tumble dry clothes in a dryer on high for at least 10 minutes to kill ticks on dry clothing after you come indoors. If clothes are damp, additional time may be needed. If the clothes require washing first, hot water is recommended. Cold and medium temperatures will not kill ticks, so they can survive. Examine gear and pets. Ticks can ride into the home on clothing and pets, then attach to a person later. So carefully make sure, if you're walking your dog and your dog was running around through the brush, check your dog for ticks, because you don't want Sparky to bring in a tick that is now on you, right? So check your pets, your coats, and like your day packs. If you have a backpack or something like that. Shower soon after being outdoors. Showering within 2 hours of coming indoors has been shown to reduce your risk of getting Lyme disease and may be effective in reducing the risk of other tick-borne diseases. Alpha-gal syndrome definitely falls under that category. Showering may help wash off unattached ticks, and it is a good opportunity to do a more thorough tick check. Check your body for ticks after being outdoors. Conduct a full body check upon returning from potential tick-infested areas, including your own backyard. Use a handheld or full-length mirror to view all parts of your body. There is a country song about this. And you also need to check your kids, because your kids are probably going to be running through crazy brush just like the dog is. Check under the arms, in around the ears, inside the belly button, back of the knees, in and around your hair, between your legs. And then it says again, check pets who go outdoors daily for ticks. Daily checks to find and remove ticks that are crawling on or biting your pets help keep them healthy, but it also helps them from bringing them in. Now, some other recommendations that the CDC website is getting, and it's you can create tick safe zones, or zones that you're preventing like a ton of ticks, and it gives a list of simple landscaping techniques that can help reduce the blacklegged tick populations. Now remember, the Lone Star tick is our main culprit, but the blacklegged tick can also carry AGS. So it recommends removing leaf litter. That's like a pile of leaves that you raked and it's just sitting there. Clear sounds like clear grass. Clear tall grasses and brush around homes and at the edges of lawns. Place 3 feet wide barriers of wood chips or gravel between lawns and wooded areas to restrict tick migration into recreational areas. Mow the lawn frequently. Stack wood neatly and in a dry area. This also discourages rodents. Keep playground equipment, decks, and patios away from yard edges and trees. Discourage unwelcome animals such as deer, raccoons, stray dogs from entering your yard. So this is funny because we live in Denver. We're in the outskirts of Denver, and we get a ton of deer in our yard. And as they're always out there, I'm thinking, how many ticks are you bringing into this yard that we're then playing soccer in? Remove old furniture, mattresses, or trash from the yard that may give ticks a place to hide. And kind of just use common sense. Like I said, I walked through that really tall grass field in Tennessee where it was known to have a lot of ticks in that area, and then I was just covered. But even being covered, we were able to get them off of me because it was a very timely, I found it like immediately, and then I freaked out. So it was a quick removal, but I personally think, as someone who's spent a lot of time outdoors, the best thing you can do is dress appropriately. You don't want them crawling up. So what we used to do is we used to tuck our pants into our tight socks. So you're really creating like a barrier there. And then we used to spray bug spray around that area. So it's like, if a tick is going to come in, it's going to come in right there. It's already challenging for them physically to get in. But then they also have this insect repellent barrier. And then once you come in, checking for ticks. I think personally, those are really important aspects. Now, as y'all know, I don't want a lawsuit. So let's really reiterate, this is not medical advice. Don't take my medical advice. Talk to your doctor about your medical needs and questions. I am simply doing research on a topic and presenting it on my Passion Project podcast. I'm not your doctor. So just legally speaking, this is not medical advice. So let me make that extremely clear. But that is kind of the overview of alpha-gal syndrome, the meat allergy that you get from the tick bite. The tick bites have alpha-gal in them. It's been feeding on, red meated animals like a deer. It then gets into your system. The saliva from the tick does not help the situation. In fact, it makes it worse, and it all of a sudden now your body has these specific IgE antibodies against alpha-gal. And then when you consume red meat that has alpha-gal, your body has this allergic reaction. I think a lot more research needs to be done on this. This is a very debilitating disease. It is a dangerous disease. It can be, and it's a quality of life issue. And so if you're listening to this because you have it, I really empathize, because I think that sounds very challenging, and I am just hopeful that research will come out and studies will come out in the future that can maybe help with this situation and this problem, because this is something that is very challenging, and it is, like we said, getting a lot of attention in the media. So a lot of times when things go viral, funding gets funneled in. So I hope that this will get the appropriate funding that it needs. If you want more information, if you're interested in more information on like the mechanism of how the allergy is actually happening in your body, and just kind of the pathways that describe this, I will put citations in the podcast body of this episode. This is a public health podcast, and I would like to be a little bit more intentional about the end of the episodes, talking about how does this relate to public health? How, as public health professionals, should we look at this? And I think there are a couple things. One, something that's glaring to me is that this is underreported and it is not notifiable to CDC. They did a study, and a large percentage of primary care physicians had never heard of this disease, and I think it was a third did not feel confident in how to treat it. So there's kind of like this gray cloud of, we don't 100% know how many reported cases are in the United States, and then there is a little bit of a lack of education in physicians on how to identify it and how to treat it. And I think as public health professionals, those are things that stand out to me, as I think there needs to be a little bit more awareness about this. That's happening right now with the media. Sometimes the media, even if it's incorrect or bad press, at least brings attention to it, and that gives public health professionals a chance to step in and say, hey, I see people are clicking on this topic. Let's talk about it in a factual capacity. I think this is a great example of that. And also, prevention. Not getting the tick bites in the first place is how you prevent getting the disease, and this disease, or just tick-borne illnesses in general. And it brings up the conversation of prevention versus treatment after someone already has something. Now, a lot of people get it, and it's not their fault. They had a tick bite, they didn't see the tick bite, and now they're living with this condition. And so I think it's important to realize that when talking about a topic or researching a topic or deciding where funding should go, that you're kind of looking at different groups of people who do not have it and you want to prevent them from having it, people who do have it, and how can you make their quality of life better? How can you protect them from the dangerous aspects of it, the anaphylaxis, the unfortunately the people who are losing their life? How do you prevent that? But also, how do you prevent the general public from getting it in the first place? And again, that's raising awareness about tick safety, how to prevent tick bites, how to make it so your backyard isn't just like a hotbed of ticks, and then also what to do once you do have it. Maybe I don't know a ton about the science behind the alpha-gal in like the dairy and stuff, but could there be, dairy products that have the alpha-gal removed? I don't know. That would be something that I would be curious to look into. Like for example, I drink milk that has the lactose removed. Lactose-free milk, it tastes exactly like milk. So those are kind of my out-of-pocket public health thoughts, and I'd like to do that more at the end of these episodes. So that's what I'm thinking, and that was this episode. It was a little quicker, and it had this video component, but I think this will be a nice, fun change to Transmissible. You can see me talking to you. I talk out with my hands, and yeah, hopefully the audio and video sync up nicely. It was a little delay at the beginning, and hopefully those sync well. And as always, I would love feedback. Please like, share, follow. It helps the pod. I love the analytics, deep dive in the analytics at the end of these. If you're in a tick-borne illness Facebook group where people are fascinated by tick-borne illnesses, drop a link. Let the people know. It just helps the podcast. And like I said, I'm going to do this anyways because this is really fun for me. But it's even more fun when I have a curious and smart, fun community to share my deep dives with. So I think that's it. So first Monday of the month, modern public health topic episode. Third Monday of the month, bright and early, will be a little bit more geared historically. Eventually, I got to do bubonic plague. I've done a bunch of them, and in the back of my head, I keep thinking, one of these days I got to sit down. I want to do like a really detailed, long timeline, comprehensive review of the bubonic plague. So that will be coming down the chute at some point. But y'all know I love the history and the historical science. I also think it's really important when looking at modern day public health topics that we have a understanding of the history of public health and science and medicine, because nothing happens in a vacuum. COVID felt very new and very novel to a lot of people, but if you look at a lot of the elements of it that were so controversial, it's seen throughout history. And so I think we can look at public health topics in a more accurate way when we know the history and we know how, people are people, how people have responded, how leaders have responded, how politically things have played out in the past, and we can learn a lot from that. So I think as people and as public health professionals, knowing the history of outbreaks and diseases and challenges and the wins and the losses, we can be better sifter through of truths and how to weed through misleading and sensationalized topics of today, if that makes sense. So that's my episode. I hope you guys have a great week. This is coming out Monday morning, so I hope you guys have a great Monday, a great week, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.